Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another night of Stars, Stripes, and Anfield Nights. I'm joined today with Brandon and Colin. We'll start with Brandon. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing good. I'm having an excellent Tuesday, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what constitutes for an excellent Tuesday, but I guess I'm having one. I'm glad to be with you guys as always. So, yeah, ready to go.
I don't know. Well, it's better than a subpar Tuesday, so excellent. We'll take. Colin, how about yourself?
Yeah, not a lot going on, but it's been beautiful in Pittsburgh the last 2 days. Like it's 70 and sunny. So I will, I've been in a particularly good mood, even though it has been a Monday and a Tuesday. But yeah, man, living in Southern California must be great. The sunshine is really, one hell of a drug.
Yeah, it's quite nice. I grew up in Maryland and Connecticut, so don't miss those cold like Septembers till Marches, but I feel a bit of a snob now because I'm like, it's 60 degrees. I have to wear a sweatshirt. It's so cold. But
The Northeast grayness is it's a real thing,
yeah. So I do not envy you and Brandon, but I guess I feel like I just feel exhausted from all the wins that we pulled out. I don't know about you two. We'll go to you guys, but like when we're scoring at these like final minutes of the games, like I'm so like energy wise spent that I'm like almost like relieved and in tears that we've scored. I'm just like, yes, I can't shout, I can't scream. But Brandon, what was your reaction to Nunez's, what was it, 109th, 110th minute winner?
Just
Or 98, 98, 99, excuse me.
I sell mattresses for a living, and I have like purple mattresses set up right beside my desk. And when he scored, I went diving across them and like rolling across them. Like, just, I don't care if like nobody was back there, but I wouldn't care if there's somebody was, because like it meant that much. I looked like a 8-year-old like playing around on the mattress. Like I rolled off the side onto the floor. I'm like, oh, I might pay for that one later, just being sore and old now. But thankfully, nothing's broken. But my God, it was just one of those just euphoric moments because I can't scream, so I have to get it out some other way. So that's how I got it out. And I don't know. I felt very confident the entire game, even going up to those final moments. I'm like, we're going to score. I just had that feeling all game, but obviously to get the actual goal was, a completely different story.
I was certainly running down to the wire there. Totally understand that celebration as well. But I felt the same way. I was like, we're gonna win. We've learned. I feel like if you've been watching Liverpool the last 10 years, you learn to not let it, like, not give up until the whistle's blown. Like, not take any result until that whistle's blown. But Colin, what was your reaction? And do you think we can get away with these late wins? Continually get away?
I I should remember and I should know to just be like, well, like we're just gonna play to the very, very, very end. But I was like doom and gloom from like 80 minutes on. I was like, this is so typical of us. This is so like, of course, this is how this is gonna go, and City are gonna win, and this is it. This is the end. And I was like, just watch and watch till the and um I was in a public space when that happened, and I had to be like like restrained. I was getting some like cross eyes, like is he okay? Is he doing all right? Yes, I was doing more than all right, but yeah, I mean, very exhilarating as always, and I think we can keep getting away with them as long as teams keep leaving us in the games. If you're not gonna put us away, somehow, and I think this is it's a mentality that's been cultivated, is like we are going to fight to the very bitter end, and that's it almost can't, that kind of attitude almost can't be taught. It is one of the, as someone who coaches, it is one of the hardest things to instill that kind of belief in people, that like that if they fight that hard, that they will get rewarded, or that they have a chance to get rewarded. So it's so impressive. I just wish, I would really love like a 4-0 first half. Like that'd be great, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And totally agree with you with that mentality. For me, I think like seeing the home games as well, like that, like Anfield crowd, it's a cliche, but it's also, you've seen so many managers from Ferguson to Pep to Mourinho talk about the power of the Anfield crowd, but to get it done away from home, I thought watching that game, hearing the Nottingham Forest crowd, I was like, they're at it today. Like it was loud. It was, my girlfriend was in the other room, just like, is that the Liverpool fans? I was like, no, I can't. Like, I can hear them sometimes, but the Nottingham crowd is just absolutely like rabid. So for the sport that showed up, and then for the young kids continuing showing up, I feel exhausted for them. I can't see it, but like you said, I'm just hoping for a 4-0 first half from us coming up. Just give us a little break, and I'll skip around for the topics tonight. I know Xabi Alonso drama's up front, but I want to talk about the Europa preview. We got the game on Thursday. What is it? The Czech Republic, Sparta Prague, first in their division. This, we're starting to get players back. Szoboszlai, Nunez, potentially Salah. We'll talk about him as well later. But Brandon, how confident are you feeling going into this match on Thursday? And how do you approach this, like personnel wise? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm confident because it's Liverpool, so always going to be confident that once we go into any game, we have a chance to win, no matter what team we put on the pitch. I do like what Optimus Composite there said about Darwin kicking the advertising boards. I thought the same thing watching that replay. I'm like, what? He's the craziest bastard that I think's ever played for this club. But for the team, it's such you're such caught between the rock and the hard place. Obviously, you want to continue to play well in the Europa League. You want to get guys going again, but with the certain injuries that players are having, like Mo having hamstring, same thing with Szoboszlai, Nunez having his injuries. Do you want to overplay them and then they have to miss out Sunday because they tweak something in this game? It's like going to Prague. I mean, I think you can do maybe this very similar squad to what you did against Nottingham Forest, and then kind of save everybody for the late. Maybe try to nick a goal, or if it's 0-0, 1-0, nick the goal, make it even going home. Like coming back to Anfield, I would expect us to be taking care of Prague at Anfield, like no matter what team we put out there. So I think as long as it's draw, 1-0 win, I'm happy. Personnel wise, I mean, might even rest, like put Gomez on the right side and put Simicast at left, Kwanzaa and maybe Virgil for the first half of the game, or maybe the 60 minutes. And then I wonder what you do in goal, with whether you go with Kelleher, whether you can rotate him out, but at the same time, he's a brick wall back there. So you just put him in there, they're never going to score. Midfield, I don't know. I have no idea. I completely forgot this game existed until you sent the topics. Like I thought it was just a Man City week until somebody sent the topics. Like, oh, we do play Thursday against Prague. I'm like, shit. Oh, sorry. So I don't know. I haven't thought that much about it, but yeah, I think really you can still kind of not start the big guns for this game. Save them for Sunday. That's the game that really, really matters.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, Brandon. Especially what you're saying, the home leg back at Anfield. Not saying we can go out and absolutely blow this match or not take it seriously, but we do have that wiggle room and that Anfield night to return to. So I think there can't be enough importance or expectation put for the Manchester City game on Sunday. This is an absolute must get a result. Like, I don't think we necessarily have to win, but we need to get a result, like, no matter what, in order for this Premier League title challenge to just continue. But, Colin, what are your thoughts before we even get to Manchester City? How do you approach Prague? Like, who are you wrapping in cotton, saving for Sunday? Who do you think we can trust to get the job done?
I think the only people that you can absolutely like be confident in kind of wrapping up and trying to make sure that they're making it to the weekend is going to be Virgil and Mo. I don't care if Mo is like thinks that he can get back. You know, I don't. It doesn't matter to me. Like we don't need him or his goals that much for an away game at Prague when we have a second leg coming. I'd be totally fine to see any other pairing of the center backs play. Like normally in past years, I would be more like trepidatious about whether or not they could play or they could do. Like we've seen the young guys, and not even just like the kids, but like the young guys who've been part of the squad, Kwanzaa, Bradley, like they're as much a part of the first team, as anybody else, especially with the injuries. I trust them implicitly, so I have no worry. I have no worry for who we're going to play. I don't necessarily know what kind of strategy we're going to really play in terms of like who is going to play, who isn't. I don't feel very confident at all in saying like someone definitely is or someone definitely is not going to play for this midweek game, but whoever it is, I do feel supreme confidence in.
Yeah, that's fair. They've certainly given us like enough reason to believe in the squad, youngsters and fringe players. For me, I'll always give Joe Gomez credit. But it's turning into our James Milner and Ben Henderson. But Joe Gomez seems to be the one who's playing every position on the field. Just need a goal from him to cement that status. But Brandon, do you think we should keep putting these youngsters out there at this stage of the season? I thought that Bobby Clark in midfield against Nottingham Forest had a hard time in the game. And do you think there's a tipping point between utilizing the youngsters and then relying on them and possibly not helping their development?
Well, the worst part of the past few weeks is that we had no other choice. And now that we have a choice, I think we can kind of start rotating them out a little bit and not having to overplay or overexpose them to moments they're not ready for. I know that's like kind of a talk in the group chat of like Jaden Dan's, whether he's like, can we start him in front city if we need to? And it's like, I really don't want to put him in that. And he misses sitter and all of a sudden his career is completely off track because that's all he can think about because he wasn't mentally ready for that moment. I don't know. I think he'd bury it, but, because he's Jaden Dan's and he's incredible. But I was just kind of like looking over the squad a little bit. Like the issue is like with the Europa League is that it's already set. So like, there's no like option to add like Jaden Dan's or anybody like that. So he's not in the squad, at least what I'm seeing here. So, I mean, in terms like the front, like we have to kind of rely on what we already have, like Yakpo, like Cade Gordon is like one of the only youngsters, and Frauendorf is also in the Europa League squad, who we haven't seen at all. So we can't really rely on the youngsters for this game because there's not a lot of them there. You can see Bobby Clark. You can see, I think what somebody said, Luke Chambers in the chat. I don't see Luke Chambers getting the game when we have Costas and Andy both like ready to go. This is a game tailor-made for Costas to start. I don't know. I don't think we're over relying on him at the moment. I think Bobby Clark had earned the right to kind of get a start in a Premier League game. I think he did all right. It wasn't great. I don't think he was horrible though. I just think, overall the performance was pretty poor from most of the team, like in terms of just cohesiveness, which you can kind of expect that with a team that doesn't play together that much. So I don't know. I think right now we're kind of in that sweet spot where we're not over relying on youngsters, but we're really kind of bleeding them in at the right times or bleeding them in the right games.
Yeah, it's definitely something Klopp's certainly had enough practice with over the years. So it seems like he's finally perfecting his methods. But I think one of the questions I'm curious about, Colin, is how important is it to get a result in Prague? Like, regardless of who starts, let's say, we have most of the first team or half of the first team, fringe players and youngsters. can a loss in Prague or a bad performance and a defeat be like, can that rock or set the wrong mentality going into Sunday? Are you worried about that at all?
No, no. If anything, I was while you were asking, I was trying to think of like where the line is in terms of like where the score line could be for me to be, truly worried about the return leg. Where it's like, oh, that's really that's going to be really difficult to overcome. I think the line is between is if we lose by 2 goals, or more than 2 goals rather, so 3 and above, like that's where it would be like, ooh, that's dicey. If we were to lose by let's say it's 2-0, the return leg at home, like I am absolutely confident that we bag like 5. Like we would play the abs, like whomever is available for however long they're available for. We're playing everyone, So and the crowd that we would have, like I really think like anything, a 2-goal deficit or less, and I think we're gonna be fine. I wouldn't like for us to lose it going into the weekend, although there's something to be said, I think, about kind of rebound performances. Obviously not ever something that you would want to prefer, but like I'm thinking after that Arsenal game, like how we've kind of rattled off games since then. So, being humbled, I think sometimes, and whether or not it's a loss or it's just a tie or they just play really, really well and we have to, respond in kind. I think that kind of awakening or like reawakening, like, hey, you still have to try against teams that we think that are not very good or play in leagues that are not very good. We're going there. I'm sure that their stadium will be absolutely raucous. It is the biggest game of their, not just their year, probably their last several years. So, we have to expect teams to play really, really well and to be carried by their own crowd too. So, again, wouldn't love to lose going into the weekend, but it's almost to me, it almost is like 2 separate mentalities, even though, of course it isn't. Of course, it's the same team, but just getting something or just playing okay on the midweek, I think, is more than fine going into the weekend.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we do tend to, maybe not always, but I feel like we tend to forget, or we'll go into a game we expect to win and then get taken aback. I used to think one of the biggest criticisms at the club, fairly, was like playing at the level of the opposition. Like you could get psyched up for the big games and then kind of cruise against the smaller clubs. I still think we can get caught out at times like that. The classic example for this season is probably Luton away, even though Luton's taken down some of the big boys at their home stadium. But I think it's easy to kind of go into a game you're expected to win, as the crowd too, as supporters too, and not expect a win, and then you're 70 minutes in, down a goal or 0-0, having to fight for the win. But yeah, I think I'm very curious to see how this game goes. I'm very much hoping for a 2-0 first half performance just to settle the nerves and get Klopp able to rest some players for Sunday. But as you said, it's going to be one of Prague's biggest games in recent years, and they're going to be up for it. So I looked at the team. There was no names that I recognize on Sparta Prague's team. Brandon, do you know anything about Sparta Prague, or are you worried at all for who we're going to put out? Like, what part of the pitch are you worried about?
Let me see. I'm trying to remember if I know anybody from Sparta Prague. Oh. Nobody stands out to me. Well, it seems like it's very check heavy. I mean, obviously, it depends on what we do at the back. If it's a game where we decide to rest Virgil, like, what do we do? because that means Bradley's going to have to play if we rest Virgil. If we don't rest Virgil, that does allow Joe to play on the right side, but then at some point Connor's going to have to play because we just don't have any right back options. So if we rest Virgil, that's probably the big areas. Just, can they make work of that would make it end up being like Konate's got to play as well in Kwanzaa. It's still kind of a mess back there at center back. If only we got a left-sided center back. It'd been so much easier right now. Always the midfield battle is always the key to like all these games. The game we played, the first game of the Europa League, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. They scored that really well taken corner, like from outside the box. Really good corner routine, like a shot right to the corner. Just they're going to be up for those moments where they trying to seize every single opportunity. If they get a corner, they're going to have something elaborate or something very well worked. They've been working on the training ground because they know that's their best opportunities to nick something is, a corner maybe that just randomly comes their way. They have to be on top of those. Loss. Thank you, Optimist Composite. So those are the big moments, just making sure whenever they do have a quick opportunity that we're just clean and just thorough at the back, that we're not giving, a second chance, a second ball that can come back in. It's just clear it out, get rid of it, let the guys up front run with the ball.
Yeah, it's definitely our defense can have some hiccups, but I do feel like for me, I'm more worried about getting goals, but at the same time, as we've been saying, we have the home leg and Anfield kind of sucks in goals, the crowd. So not too worried, but Colin, what about you? Are you worried defensively or offensively? And what do you think? Who do you think needs to step up in these next two games? Let's assume we'll talk about Salah after this, but for this question, just assume Salah's not in the equation.
Yeah, I'm more worried about scoring goals in this one than I would be about defending. I think regardless of what kind of combination we have, I think we've been pretty consistent defensively in what our efforts been and in how we play against people. I think that's been pretty standard all year. I think the amount of goals that we do and do not get on a week in, week out can kind of be up and down. I am forever scarred by that game against Red Star. What was that? Was that in 18? The away leg in 18. We just looked like we wanted nothing to do with like being there at all. We looked like we could not, we could not get near the ball. They were all, it was like a nightmare game. But I wouldn't expect based on our experience to have that happen. But at the same time, yeah, I don't think that it's going to be a problem keeping them out. Maybe not entirely. A goal again, I think, is what we could probably realistically expect to give up. I think that it starts to become really worrisome if you're going to get a team that's really just going to put all their effort into trying to defend and just trying to eke out some sort of result for themselves to try to get it to the second leg, see if they can grab one and win it. Especially the lower down we get in our roster, like the more worrisome it becomes, like breaking down really, really intense low blocks or people who are really invested in the defending that they're going to be doing.
Yeah, that Red Star game definitely was just one of the worst games I can remember, but I'll give the lads some leeway. I don't know if either of you have seen like YouTube videos of Red Star's stadium and the tunnel coming up. Any of the viewers who check that out.
How could you feel I had to be after that game that I had seen this? How could you feel safe? You're walking down like a concrete, it looks like a concrete drainage tunnel. And the stadium is just it's really would be scary to play there. I would not feel great about it.
I think the score was 1-0, Paul. But yeah, I think like they have like armed guards too, like lining the walls of that drainage system. And I remember watching like Red Men TV, and I think Paul Meacham was saying that they had to stay in the ground for like 2 hours after the game so that the police could come through and clear the area to make sure it was safe to evacuate or to leave the stadium for supporters. So yeah, I don't know if Prague has that same atmosphere. I had cousins who lived in Prague for a good decade, but they only said nice things. But I don't know if they were going to football matches.
So,
But
so the score of that game was, this is wild. I pulled up the stat line. The score of that game was 2-0. Red Star beat us. We had 23 shots. They had 10. We had 72% possession. They had 28. We had 639 passes. They had 258. It's just like a diabolical game of football.
That's wild. Brandon, we'll jump into, definitely want to touch on the City game later, but I'll save that question. We'll get through the other topics for now. We'll start with the head of the title of the video, which is Xabi Alonso drama. So the big kind of news that's been coming out in the last week has been that Bayern Munich are the ones like going for Xabi Alonso, that he's leaning towards them, all this news. And the kind of caveat of that news is that it's all coming from Germany. And it's, they're saying that Bayern's the favorite, et cetera, et cetera. So there's nothing really concrete, and I don't think we can expect anything really with Liverpool tending to work behind the scenes till it goes. But what do you think of these news topics about around Bayern Munich, Brandon? Like, do you think there's a realistic possibility Xabi Alonso goes there? Do you think they're trying to destabilize Leverkusen's title charge? What do you think of this news around it?
I think it's more option 2 than option 1. I think it is just trying to find some way for Bayern Leverkusen to slip up in the league, try to get them to kind of drop a few points, get Bayern back into it. Because, for some reason, German football can't exist unless Bayern Munich wins a title, which is ridiculous. But I do, it's possible he goes there. You can't really rule out a club the size of Bayern Munich being in for a top, like what seems to be a top class manager. Like, there's no reason why they wouldn't be in on him. But I think it's more that they're just trying to get into the heads. I think Frimpong's now being linked with a move to Bayern Munich. It could be like the Dortmund years when, Lewandowski and, what was the kid's name?
Götze.
Yeah, whenever they moved and all that stuff. I think there's even times when they link Klopp to Bayern at the time. So it's, I think they even say now that Klopp wants to come to Bayern. I think it's always just trying to say, everything German runs through our club. So it's just anything to make sure Bayern is always at the head of anything German football related. So like anytime there's something great going on in that league or in the country there, Bayern somehow is tied into it. So I think it's more just the media pushing something to try to get Bayern back into this title race that Xabi has done an absolutely phenomenal job of kind of really putting a gap in between the two.
I definitely agree with you there. It does seem to be a lot of clickbait, a little more destabilization tactics. But Colin, where do you fall on that line? And do you think this has like an adverse effect? Like, do you think Bayern's squad would be buoyed by the news that their club is looking for their rival in the title race's manager? Like, how do you think this affects their squad, the news? And what do you think of the news in general?
That's a great point, Drew. It's a great question. I actually, this is to me how that through your line of questioning, how I can tell that this is like agent kind of speak leaking out, and then people on Twitter taking that, whatever the like little agent trails that are left, taking that and running with it and being able to make money off it on Twitter. Because if this amount of reporting happens that, they do want him and that he's really interested in them, and then he does go to Liverpool instead of Bayern Munich, then Bayern Munich look like chumps. And I think that their players would kind of feel that way too. I like that to me is so much worse than like to be linked so heavily, or if this is, let's assume that this is all true and that maybe he is leaning more towards Bayern Munich at this time, and that he's, this is a move that he would want more. And then for all of that to be said, and then for him not to go there and to go where he was going to, rumored to go to in the beginning, makes them look weak, and makes them look it makes them look like they are not the top dog in world football. And I think if there's anything that you can, with real reliability, bank on Bayern Munich, is that they care about their reputation. They care about their reputation maybe more than anybody else in world football. And I think are very careful to, have been traditionally very careful to make sure that their standing and their, like, the aura of that place is kept where it is. And that like like we've said, that everything in that league does funnel only to that one team. To me, this is very much like, Xabi's agents are saying to people, well, we are considering Bayern Munich. We actually, this might be a better move for his career. You don't want to just tell the club you're negotiating with, I'm only considering you, and whatever you offer first is what I'll take, because you're the only place I want to be. Like, that's bad business. And I just don't see that as all these rumors, that is, as really holding too much merit, other than kind of seeing it for what it is, really.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious if Xabi Alonso's agents were leaking it in the way like kind of Mourinho would go to his locker room and tell the players, he's like, I'm about to go out in this press conference and say this, but I'm totally lying. Or like, that'd be hilarious if Xabi's in the locker room, like, watch, I'm just going to tell my agent to put this out there just so Bayern's locker room and Tuchel are having a meltdown over his job. I like what you said about them looking weak, because I don't see them coming out in a good light unless they get him. And even still, it will just, like, if they do lose the Bundesliga, it's, classic what Brandon was saying, back to the days of Bayern just cherry picking all the best German managers, players, etc., to make their team the Uber team in the Bundesliga.
Can you imagine if they throw the kitchen sink at him and he doesn't go? Can you imagine, like, what that implies about them, or their their project, their facilities, the state of their club? Like, that would, how embarrassing that would be. I don't think that this is not, I don't think that this is the kind of money or long-term investment that Jude was, which was the problem. Like, I think Liverpool know that they have to get this right. And Bayern Munich honestly can go, but I feel like Bayern Munich can go one of many ways and get it right. But they can't throw the kitchen sink at one guy and lose. That is not an option for them. I think it will be very interesting to see how this all shakes out.
Oh boy, not him talking about Jude. A lot of pessimism, oh boy. I remembered you before the League Cup final. Hope you get the optimism back in your life. That's I agree with Colin. I don't think it's the same situation as Jude, and I don't it doesn't seem like it seems more like the supporter base, like, pushing the Jude line, as I remember, or the Xabi Alonso line, rather than the club. The club seems to be operating behind closed doors like normal, if they are. And with Jude, it just had a terrible taste, because we had, like, Henderson like Trent Alexander-Arnold with like Instagram posts and everything. So it just seemed just like that was the pie on your face moment when he went to Madrid. But Brandon, coming to the comments section for some questions. Uh, this one from Optimus and Paul Lindo in quick succession. Will Xabi decide before this season ends? And why would he go to Bayern? Combined with that, the Madrid. So the three-part question: Do you think we'll hear from Xabi Alonso a decision before the end of the Bundesliga? And can you rate Bayern, Liverpool, and Real Madrid as who are the biggest contenders to Liverpool, and what's the realistic choice for him?
And then I'm going to add a fourth one in there. Paul asked me, this is technically not a recording studio, Paul. It's just my man cave, but I do have a lot of music stuff set up in here. So it's not technically one. It's where I do my podcast and where I do reading and other things like that. Questions. I could see Xabi coming out before the season ends, like once they wrap up the title, like once that's like confirmed that they've won the title, or, you know, if they make it all the way to the Europa League final, I think he would wait till after the season. I don't think he wants to announce that while there's still something to be won. So maybe like demotivating the players, or just adding an extra like distraction going into a big game, especially if they're playing Liverpool in the Europa League final. Then that adds a weird layer of, this is going to be our manager in like 2 days from now. So it just adds a weird layer. If they win the title, get knocked out of the Europa League, I could see him saying something before the end of the season, like, I'm going to Liverpool. Like, you know, they've done everything they need to do. Like, they've already won the title, wrapped it up. Going to Bayern over us, I think it would be kind of rolled into the Real Madrid question. Like, I think it would be like almost he is expecting Ancelotti leaves after next season, because Bayern has a more of a track record of running through coaches. Well, obviously we will give managers time, because I mean, everybody saw the writing on the wall with Brendan Rodgers, but we gave him a whole nother summer, like, to still like kind of work with the team. You know, we gave Dalglish the whole season. We gave Roy Hodgson the job in the first place. I like Roy, but he is so out of his element. I think it's just, I think he might take that Bayern job as just a short-term bridge, waiting for Ancelotti to leave Real Madrid. Real Madrid is ultimately the biggest rival for Xabi than Bayern is, in my opinion. I think they're much more the bigger rival, because that is his, you know, that's probably is his dream job. And as much as I love Liverpool to death and I want them to be the biggest club in the world, Real Madrid is still a completely different animal, with like just a completely different stratosphere of, you know, what they are as a club. I think it's ultimately Real Madrid's the biggest competitor, and I think he takes the Bayern job just if he wants to kind of a short-term bridge to get to Real Madrid, because it might just be, you know, do it at a bigger club, a club with more infrastructure, more worldwide appeal than Leverkusen. If he goes in there and dominates with Bayern Munich, he's ready for, you know, a Real Madrid. Where I think he's ready for Real Madrid when he proves it, or he's ready for Liverpool by proving it at Bayern Leverkusen.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting predicament. I agree with you there, with Real Madrid being the potential biggest rival for Liverpool for his signature. We know Liverpool's in his heart, but he's also a Spanish lad. So Real Madrid played for Real Madrid, and Real Madrid historically one of the biggest clubs in Spain. I'm actually wondering along that line of short-term solutions, Brandon, until Real Madrid opens up, if he would just stay at Bayer Leverkusen for another year, because, you know, as I said, they're in Europa League. You know, he'll get the chance to go Champions League with them next year. Like, that's for sure in the bag. And he could get a chance at taking a shot at Champions League with this team that he's built up, and then have the Real Madrid job open in a year. So he does have that option of waiting, just missing the Liverpool bus and waiting for the Real Madrid. Colin, do you see that as, potential dream crusher for Liverpool fans?
I mean, the answer is yes. If we are being very honest, like, there is, to your guys' points, like, I think Real Madrid is the only club in their stratosphere. There are other teams and other clubs at different points that can get up to here where they are. They're up here, and everybody else is like kind of going up and down below. they're the only club that has the consistency, just that feeling that club, and I don't like them. I'm not a fan of them. They're the Yankees to me. They're the Dodgers. Like I don't like those kinds of clubs. But there is no denying that other clubs, to continue that baseball analogy, other baseball teams can go up and down in popularity and with a great player, or a couple great teams in a row, a good run, whatever. Those clubs are always going to be up there, regardless. Real Madrid is like it's different. They operate on a different level than the rest of us. And then I think like there's an argument to be made for everybody else down below it. Like there's like a good fight of clubs that like really matter. I think the Bayern Munich job is definitely an easier job, a more natural next progression. If we're talking about, like if you wanted to just walk up the steps of a career instead of trying to jump up 3 or 4 steps or, take a big leap, Bayern Munich is the next best job for him. It would be, they're going to give him the money he wants. They're going to allow him to sell off players that he doesn't want to create the capital. They're going to be able to turn around and just pick players from the Bundesliga off of whatever teams, whatever play. He's had a year now to see all these opposition players. He can just pick and choose who he wants from there. Maybe a guy from England, maybe a guy from Spain. No doubt in my mind that they would be number one. If he signed a 3-year contract, they would be back to number one for the next 3 years while he was there. And then when he was done doing that, guess what? Real Madrid is always going to be there. They can always call back. Ancelotti. The thing about Ancelotti is he is goated, but like also he doesn't like do a lot of managing. Like he's not hands-on in that way. There's, he is a manager who sits on the water cooler and literally smokes cigarettes during training, and his assistants run the training, and like he dictates the larger decisions and who the coaches are and how the team is run. But like they do the work for him, and he is making the decisions for them. So it's not as impactful for him to like. He could say like, "Yeah, I'm going to retire," and then be like, "Oh, I'm not actually. I'll just continue to, dress in a nice suit and stand on the sideline." That and then that job would open up whenever Ancelotti decides that he will be done, and that job will be there. Liverpool is like the hardest of those jobs. He has to work with a real budget against super teams that up until this point have had no punishment. And up until the season, Newcastle were just going to be another one onto that pile. And now the only reason that they've stopped doing that is because they're scared that they're actually going to be consequences now. Has to work with a real budget, does have to live within their means, and it has the hardest competition of anybody. It in the hardest league, in the deepest, most difficult league to manage and to play in, where the expectations are higher than any other league. So like it is the hardest job of those that we're talking about. I guess the only saving grace is that the Liverpool ownership and management teams are a lot more forgiving and quite a bit more patient than the Bayern Munich ownership and management are. If you lose 2 or 3 games in a row, they're like they want you on the streets. And Liverpool, it's like, we're not happy, but like we're not going to fire you. Like, how can we support you better? Outside of that, like that's the only reason that, outside of love or outside of passion for managing the team, that Liverpool would be the better or easier, I guess, next progression.
Yeah, I agree with you on there. I think Liverpool's definitely comes with the biggest challenges, and I liked your analogy of jumping stairs because Bayern Munich's easily the next step up. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's Klopp definitely threw us the curveball with that announcement, and there's just going to be rumors after rumors, especially when you have the narratives of Xabi Alonso and his success at Leverkusen. But I want to bring this back towards football on the pitch, and we'll wrap up with leaning towards the Manchester City game. But the other point in the title that we haven't touched on yet is Salah back in training. And this does relate towards the Manchester City match. Do you, Brandon, think we put him in for a few minutes on Thursday? Do you think he gets a little time there to warm up, or would you throw him in from the start for Manchester City, or do you not risk him? Do you just bring him on from the bench, or do you even start him at all and just wrap him up? And with the rumors around Egypt wanting to bring him on international duty, because if he's fit enough to play for Liverpool, even a little bit, he's fit enough for the international break. How do you approach Salah's fitness?
Salah, I would not risk him on Wednesday. I mean, that's kind of why we got into this situation. He kind of, we brought him on maybe a little bit too quick. He got himself hurt, missing for the past couple weeks. But a player of obviously Salah's talent and standing in the game, he's got to start Sunday, no matter if he plays against Prague or not. He's got to start just because of who he is. Certain players have earned that right, and Salah's one of them. The Egypt thing, I mean, I kind of talked about it last week with you guys. Like, I don't care about international football, like, really at all. And this is one of the things that I really despise, is that, Salah decides he doesn't want to go with Egypt. There's billions of headlines about how, he's quit on his team and all these other negative things. They're playing in the Wins United Cup, which is a random tournament that just got created. That's 4 teams. It doesn't matter. There's no reason why he has to go to this, even if he's, always just healthy enough. I mean, I get that he's like the most important player to Egypt, and like he's the whole reason they can win games, or he's like the main reason they can win games. But these are friendlies. These aren't World Cup qualifiers. These aren't AFCON qualifiers. These aren't important games. Like, it just drives me up the wall, all the like demands they're putting on the players for international duty on games that don't matter. Like, this is just not important games that he needs to be, especially coming back from muscle injuries, having to go fly to, I think, Abu Dhabi to play these games. But for me, he starts no matter what Sunday. Maybe you give him 20-minute run out against Prague if you really think he needs it. I would rather not. I'd rather him, just stay in England, just make sure everything's perfect. The weather, he's used to the weather. There's no flying the check. There's no flying back. There's none of that. Just keep him in England, get him used to the weather, get him used to absolutely everything. Simulate it the best you can in some cryogenic chamber. I don't care. Get him ready for Sunday, because he's going to be starting.
Oh, it's definitely fair points. It's tough with the international fixtures. I normally, like, for like clubs like England and European clubs, I'm kind of very much the friendlies just annoy me, and I think especially Liverpool players always tend to get injured, especially for England. But I can see Egypt not wanting to be belittled, essentially being like, you're friendly, even though it is a friendly, and I agree with you. It's like, if it was a tournament, 100% back them to go. But I do tend to think that some international clubs just get like, this tournament is important, or your country isn't less important than Liverpool. So I find it hard to, like, if he's fit enough to play, I do think he should go to Egypt. And sorry, but it's a tough one. As for starting on Sunday, the one question I have for that, I'll pose this one, Colin, I'll throw you a tough one, is this a potential Harry Kane Champions League final debacle, where you throw him in when he's not ready to play in a very huge match? Because I do feel like this is almost like a final against City on Sunday. Do you start him when he hasn't had a run of games to get warmed up against an opposition like Manchester City?
I don't see what else there is to be done. I mean, if you don't play him and we don't score and we lose, we're gonna feel like idiots. Like we're gonna feel like, oh my god, like did we do everything that we could to not let that slip? If we do play him and he does score and we win, but he gets injured for the rest of the season, and then we lose 2 games down the stretch, we also are going to feel like we lose 2 games down the stretch because we don't score. We also are going to feel like idiots. I don't know that there is a right answer without knowing the outcome. Like I don't think that anything is necessarily, unfortunately, at this point, like the right decision or the wrong decision, especially if you're getting word as Liverpool from Egypt that like they're going to play him in these meaningless games regardless. I don't know what else you can do as Liverpool. You're like, well, here's the thing. Like they're going to play him already in games that don't matter. This game really does matter. This game matters so much. It matters a disgusting amount, actually. I don't know. I think it also is somewhat dependent on other people's fitnesses. Like if Lucho plays like 80 minutes plus in midweek, and like that forces you into like having to play Dom there to start, like what do how much firepower can you take out and reasonably expect to beat the City team? They're able to be gotten at. There are goals to be scored against them. Yeah, I don't feel good about any of it. The meaningless international games have to stop. We've got to stop. Something has to be done. Whether it is like we're going to have 2 international windows per season, and they're going to be 6 weeks or 4 weeks, 5 weeks each, and they're going to be like one later into the fall and one like around now, and like you're just going to and the country, you have to play all of your games in these 6 weeks, all of your weird competitions, all of your your qualifyings for all of your competition. You got to do all of it. You're going into one camp, you're taking one team. We're not doing these every month. They go away for 2 weeks and they come back, and then they got to play. They come back on Wednesday. They got to play again on Saturday at 12:30. It's ridiculous. And then to have like Egypt again, Egypt's not wrong for wanting Mo to play in games where they're playing. Like he is the most important person to their commercial success. Period. Like of anybody. They're not wrong for wanting him to play, but they are like we're all wrong for playing these games in the middle, like in a window that is 2 weeks long in the middle of a season in a run-in. Like what are we doing? Why is it this way? Like there's all this momentum in club seasons at this time. Like what's good for business is just go away for 2 weeks and play international games that don't matter, and then risk players that do matter getting injured and compromising the run-in, which is important and people care about, and like people get invested in the narratives around the title races or the the relegation hunt. It's ridiculous to me. We can't continue to play international games in this way, regardless of whether or not we as fans care about it. Like it's not sustainable. We can't just continue to add games. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I agree with you there, especially with when you see the new Champions League format for next season, which is basically like the Super League Champions League. Add that on top. Timing of that new Champions League format or Europe format competition on top of having a Euros summer these players are like, we thought we had injuries this year. I can't imagine how many injuries there are going to be next year. It's I don't even know what to say about that. So as we're wrapping up, I have not said this yet, but appreciate everyone watching, everyone who tunes in each week. This is, best part for me, Brandon, Colin, Paul when he's here, Rigo when he gets back. We truly look forward to these nights every week, and we really appreciate your viewership. If you like, subscribe, and follow the channel, that definitely helps us out. But we just appreciate you here watching along with us. Get in the comment room, get in the chat, put your comments in, any questions you have as we wrap up. Thank you to everyone in the chat tonight for your contributions. Again, we all look forward to this each week, so I appreciate you all. And as we're wrapping up, start with Brandon. What are your score predictions for Thursday and Sunday? And I'll skip for Thursday, but for Sunday, who's your man of the match and goal scorers as well?
For Thursday, I'll say 1-0 Liverpool. I could even see a situation where Kumas starts because I just saw him. He's in the Europa League squad. Or maybe he starts on the left or is coming in at the 60-minute mark. Or I think Diaz would come in later in that game if that's the case, if he starts. For Sunday, you always got to back the boys. Let's go 3-1. Man of the match, I'm going to go with Wataru Endo. I think he scores a goal. And I think he's just going to be an absolute, just as he's been all season, just after every single ball, just nonstop, just winning our hearts over and over and over again, and proving every single doubter wrong from early in the year. I'll go with Endo as the man of the match with a 3-1 win, and I think he scores a header in the 37th minute. I'm going really hard. Put the money down on it. Put your life savings down on it.
Can you imagine? That'd be
because I'm not going to put money on that. If it does happen, I will cry.
So that always happens to me, Brandon. I'll call something out and I won't put money on it. Just like, but poor financial betting decisions aside, Colin, your score prediction for Thursday, Sunday, your goal scorer and man in the match for Sunday as well.
I think Thursday's 1-1. I don't think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I don't think we're going to enjoy it. I don't think it's going to be pretty. Yeah, not super looking forward to that. I think I'm so excited and scared of Sunday. Obviously, excited for the possibilities and scared of what they might be. I think it's going to be the best crowd Liverpool have seen since the Barcelona game. I think we go down 1-0 in the first half, and I think we win. I think we win 2-1. I think Virgil will get a header for a goal, and who's going to score the goals? McAllister off a run from deep. Man of the match Endo sounds awesome to me. I can't wait for him against Rodri. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be great. Yeah, I could not possibly be more excited and also scared in the best way.
Yeah, 100%. You're giving me a heart attack with that 2-1 scoreline, though, Colin. Paul Gomez screamer, yes, please. That would be absolutely.
Could you imagine the roof will come off the place?
They'll stop the game. There'll be a pitch invasion.
Oh,
I don't think you could continue the game after that, Brandon. Totally, I couldn't watch.
Yeah,
the limbs would be on the ground.
I would just stop watching Liverpool. I'm like, you know what? This is it. This is the moment that's never going to be topped. So why am I going to continue to watch?
Be out on the street.
Yeah. Started my own riot in Columbus.
Drew, what do you think? What do you got?
I'll keep it simple. I'm going 2-0 for both. I always hope for a nice, easy, calm win. I know it will be anything but for Sunday, but I'm hoping for a first half Van Dijk header, and I think Salah should be on the bench to start City just because I don't want him to get injured again, but I want him to come on in the second half and just get that counterattack goal, that classic Salah counterattack against City to make it 2-0 and just soothe the nerves for the final minutes of the game. But
they're wide open on the counter. They're absolutely able to be ran at. And ooh, how sweet. You know what I was just what I was just thinking of, if I could put money on this happening, I would actually put a lot of money on this, is a Pep meltdown on the sideline. Like, I just think that they're you know, that crowd in the main stand is going to be, you know, all over, you know, the last Pep Jurgen game that we get in the Premier League. Like, I just think it's going to be, so raucous, and there will be shouting at refs, and the moment there will be shouting at refs, there will be, you know, things thrown from the stands, and then of course he will turn around and, you know, whatever at the, you know, yell at the stands in his baldness. Normally he's like waving at them or something, and yeah, I see a meltdown coming from a mile away. It's gonna be great.
That'd be epic. Storming out of the post-match interview.
One can only hope.
Oh, okay. I don't think we can top that. But Brandon, I'll let you get any last thing you want to get in before we wrap up the stream. Top the Pep meltdown.
I don't know if I could top a Pep meltdown. The only thing I could think is maybe if, like, we win on a Darwin Núñez goal and he does, like, you know, because obviously he gave Pep kind of the business at the Etihad earlier in the season, that he scores the winner like in the 96th minute or something crazy like that. And instead of celebrating from the fans, he just gets right into Pep's face. And then an all-out brawl happens and it goes into WWE mode, and, you know, Klopp from on top of the, you know, crossbar from the goal to get the 1-2-3, new heavyweight champion. It'd be beautiful.
I could see that too. I could see him pulling a Suarez, scoring like a last-minute winner and doing the power slide in front of Pep.
Yeah. Fingers
and getting a red card.
Oh, so worth it. It would be so worth it.
Oh, Jesus. But all right, before I give myself a heart attack just for thinking about all these potential possibilities for Sunday, thank you, Brandon, and thank you, Colin, for joining tonight. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Another great edition of Stars, Stripes, and Anfield Nights. We really appreciate everyone joining. Let's hope for a win on Thursday, and